Hi everyone, it's 11 o'clock. We ought to get started because there's so much to cover today. For those who don't know me, I'm the Innovation and People Director at Innovation Beehive, and joining me today is our Capability Director, Zac Curtis. Hi Zac.
Hi, good morning.
How are you today?
Well, I'd like to say I'm great. I will say I'm great. But one of the challenges is I've got terrible toothache for a problem I've been avoiding for
No.
months.
But keep saying you're great because that releases positive endorphins in your brain, which then will help to minimise the pain. Well, anyway, we hope to distract you over the next 60 minutes. And today we're going to be talking about the 3 principles of leading great teams. And I'm really looking forward to hearing all about this, Zac.
Me too. Oh, no, wait, I'm telling everyone about it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Good. You've got 10 seconds to think about what you're going to say for the next 60 minutes.
Should
This is
we?
going to be impressive. Well, this is the team here, and for those who haven't come across the Innovation Beehive before, what we do is we accelerate employee and customer potential. So we work with all sorts of clients, public, private sector, from McDonald's to Egon Zehnder to Lloyd's to Ashridge. So all sorts of sectors, all sorts of areas. And our 3 focuses are on leadership, culture, and innovation. And we do all sorts of things, don't we, Zac?
We
All
do.
sorts of areas. We develop employee value propositions, value frameworks, leadership workshops, capability workshops, all sorts of things. And of course, we run webinars.
And very exciting they are too.
Go for it, Zac. Do I need to remind you to press the record button? Oh, you have.
I have.
Perfect.
So just so everyone is aware, this will be recorded. Can I recommend you fasten your seatbelts because we will be galloping through a range of information, which is quite exciting. There'll be 3 polls during the session, so do feel free to give us your feedback on those. But otherwise, it would be awesome if you could stay focused on the information we're going to divulge. I noticed that some of you who are on the call today have heard some of these things from us before, and that is excellent news for you because that does mean then that you get to reinforce the learning, which is marvelous. So it's we're going to be talking about some principles that we have been developing over a couple of years now, and they have been proven to work really, really well. A lot of companies have embedded these principles now into their culture, which is great. So my strong recommendation is that you look at the information we're giving you with an open mind and to think, okay, what can I feel and think and believe and change about myself, about my team, about the way I lead if I manage people, and about my organization if my role is indeed to develop and change people. I see we have quite a few L&D people on and quite a few HR people on looking at the list here. We've written a number of white papers about the future of learning and development, future of HR, because that's all our backgrounds as well. So do feel free to check those out on the, well, if you find me on Zoom, you'll be able to find the links there. On Zoom, on LinkedIn, you'll be able to find the links there or on our website as well. Good, so that's all about us. The webinar will take approximately 60 minutes. It's going to be, well, 55 minutes. It's going to be at pace in a minute. So we're very much looking forward to it. Imagine this. Imagine that you doesn't matter whether you go back into the office or you're working from home, but everybody you interact with is somehow aligned to you. There is a kind of momentous peace between you all because you're able to work through challenges and tasks and solve problems in the most effective way because you're working super cohesively as a team. Now, if you've been listening to and joining our webinars over the last 6 months, you will know about our roadmap through uncertainty, which was a roadmap we put in place based around a white paper that we wrote around moving through COVID. And most of us are at that return phase, the number 3 there, which is all about coming back into the workplace as we move out of furlough, if you're in the UK, or as you move out of any other challenges, if you're outside of the UK, and move forwards on to renew. And most of you will be in return or renew. What we're going to be talking about today is really all about both of those things. How can we actually bring our teams back together in the most effective way as leaders using 3 principles so that our teams actually, based on the 3 principles, will be better able to know themselves, and we'll work out the benefits of that later on, recognize how others operate, and adapt themselves to have the best possible approach to each other going forwards. That will lead then to the best team working environment, whether it's remote, via online means, or face to face. Perfect. All right,
Marvelous.
good. Marvelous. And it's going to be quite lighthearted and quite good fun, because that's just the way that Angela and I roll. So do feel free to write anything in the chat, and we'll try and answer it should you feel that you want to, or should you feel that we should change our own behaviors, we'll try and accommodate for you. But I know what you're thinking. Why bother to think about building your team in a particular way as a leader using 3 principles in order to have a better outcome? Why bother? We're going through enough challenges as it is. Well, I mean, firstly, there's a benefit in the 3 principles, which we'll learn about, to knowing yourself and understanding how you yourself approach challenges in leading the team or in being in the team. Also, aligning your team to your own progress to reaching your company's priority goals and achieving their strategy is really, really important. And these 3 principles help with that. And seeing a problem from different sides, which these principles lead into, is also super important. By knowing yourself and understanding how others operate as well, it means you'll be able to then adapt to them, use particular tools to ensure that you ask them the right questions, get their engagement, and then have them aligned as a workforce as you never have before, and therefore have much better team communication. How do we know this is true? Well, it's been happening for many, many years. It is just that it's quite difficult to do it consistently. So again, our recommendation is keep an open mind, try to view what we're giving you and think, what can I take from this? What tools can I use? What does it spark in me that I can drive forwards, going forwards, too many words forwards there, in the future. Good, so the 3 principles are diverge, converge, and align. And we're gonna go through them one by one. And the first one, of course, Angela, is?
Diverge.
Nice. It's almost like you've seen this before. It is diverge.
Or I can read, one of those.
If we want to have better leaders, stronger creators, more powerful teams, we've got to embed the principles of diverge, converge, and align. Some of you, as I mentioned before, have seen this before. God, I need a COVID haircut, don't I? Look at that. It's extraordinary. I think I'll get one today. So
you're diverging. You're diverging.
Diverge. If some of you have seen this from us before, then that's great. You get to embed the learning even more. It's perfect. So Diverge itself is, I guess it's all about, oddly, talking about teamwork. It's all about the individual. Diverge is recognizing that the team is made up of a range of individuals who each have their own way of operating in the world, who each have their own way of thinking about things, and each have their own way of interpreting data or stimulus or solving a challenge. And that's fine. It's good to have individuals with their own points of view and their own ways of doing things. And probably we should find out a question from you, because you're also an individual. And that question, I think, is going to be about being misunderstood. Have any of you listening to this now ever felt misunderstood as being part of a team? Have you ever seen something in a particular way and realized your colleagues do not recognize that at all? And the 3 options there are, me, I've been misunderstood. The second option is, nope, I am a genius at putting my message across to the team. I'm never misunderstood. And the last one is, my team just need to carry out my orders. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to just put that in. It's just a bit of fun to get your engagement. We'll give it a few more minutes. Angela, have you ever felt
psychological analysis then?
Yeah, it's called the getting to a yes close. So you get people to agree with you more and more, and then they agree with you full time. Have you ever felt misunderstood, Angela?
I have, but of course I take responsibility, because it's important for me to get my communication understood, and I understand that the more resourceful I am in communicating, the more I can help people understand what I want them to understand.
Very good.
Someone said, is there a fourth? I wish people just carried out my orders. Can I tick that one?
Yeah. Thank you for the fourth. Let me just share the results, and it's not really a huge surprise. Of course, people have been misunderstood. I've been misunderstood. Of course they have, because it's part of human nature. And we'll see why in a minute. We'll talk through some of the filters of communication, which mean that sometimes it's impossible if we're a leader, for us to get our message across effectively to different divergent team members in the way that they operate. Okay, good. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for engaging. We'll do a couple more of those just to make sure you're still listening in a nice way. All right, good. So if that's still on your screen, get rid of it off your screen. I've closed the poll now, and we'll move on to the next thing. Because, have you ever, I'm sure you have you ever been thinking about perhaps solving an idea, a challenge with your team, or reaching a goal, and you and your team have been talking about it, and you've been coming up with great solutions to this particular challenge, and you've been brainstorming them, but the idea doesn't really land. It's like these post-it notes you see blowing in the wind. It might start out with the right intent. The communication coming from you might be really, really strong, but then of course, all of these different things come in to start to blow that idea away into smithereens. And that's one of the challenges with communication, because with us feeling perhaps misunderstood, when the right intention becomes destroyed by also the right intention sometimes of others, it becomes very difficult to have an effective team. Right, Angela? Right.
Yes.
Yeah, you weren't expecting that, were you?
I wasn't.
So
I was so focused on the word smithereens. I haven't heard it for ages. I love that word.
And eventually, after you become misunderstood all the time, and also, of course, you're perhaps misunderstanding the other team members, it means that teamwork is as useless as what you see on the screen here. It becomes so disparate that it's virtually impossible to have something really powerful and super cohesive. So, it's gone. So, so there's a couple of things we want to do to demonstrate that. I'm all about having quite a bit of fun on webinars. So in a second, I'm going to put something on the screen for 10 seconds. So you've got to kind of pay attention onto the screen, and I'll count you down. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to look at a sentence, and your goal is to count how many letter Fs are in this sentence, and then type it into the chat, and Angela will monitor the chat. So you ready? I'm going to count down from 3. You're going to see a sentence. How many letter Fs in the sentence? You've probably seen this sort of exercise before, but it's quite good fun. 3, 2, 1. I see Angela's doing it too. Okay, good. So type into the chat how many letter Fs you think were there.
Okay, someone spotted 2.
Okay,
someone
we've
else
got 2.
5.
Yeah.
Someone else 5.
Yeah. Okay, we've got another one. 4. 2. Lots of 5s coming in, which is good. Okay, perfect. So good. Yeah, perfect.
We've got quite a few ranging from 2 to 5.
Oddly though, no one put the right answer, which is good. But what of course the principle is, everyone's put in different numbers. There are a lot of 5s, but everyone's put in different numbers. Look, let's go back, and no, that's backwards. Let's go forwards and come back. Let's go forwards and just count them out again. So we've got
We're still getting more wrong answers coming in.
Oh, we've got one right. That's good. All right. So look, we've got finished. I'll count them on my hands. So we've got finished files are the result of years of scientific study combined with the experience of years. So 6. So the answer is 6. One of the big challenges, of course, is I mean, there's a lot of psychology behind this, but I'm going to cherry pick the relevant bits for the point. And that is, of course, our brains are all wired differently, which is a positive thing. That's one of the things which makes the Diverge principle quite important. We are all individuals. We do all have slightly different brain dominances. And I know some of you on this call have gone through this sort of training with me before. So my background is a little bit of psychology, but lots of sales psychology over the last 10 years or so. And I'm I love it. I'm passionate about it, partly because when I do webinars and trainings like this, I get to demonstrate one particular part of my brain, which we'll talk about in a minute. Generally speaking, there are a number of different theories on the brain. They all have differing degrees of viability around them. I'm a big believer in the ones based around some of the late 60s, early 70s studies, like, for example, Paul MacLean and Roger Sperry. And you would have heard of their theories yourselves. Roger Sperry, I think it was 1973, developed the left brain, right brain model, which of course you all know about, where the left brain controls the right hand side of the body, left brain deals with facts, numbers, detail, logic, planning, process, and so on. And the right hand side of the brain controls the left hand side of the body, deals with creativity, spirituality, emotions, seeing the big picture, empathy, and so on. And the theory behind was that everyone has a dominance of some sort. Doesn't mean you can't use the other side of the brain. It just means that you naturally have a preference one way or the other. The jury's kind of out, depending on what you read, and as to whether it's by nature or nurture. I think it's probably a bit of both. But just start to think about whether you might be left or right. And while you're doing that, dominant, of course, you're both. I'll just tell you a little bit about Paul MacLean. So Paul MacLean, I think it was 72, determined that there was the triune brain model, and that says that there was the neocortex, the cerebral bit, the big bumpy bit you see on CSI when they do an autopsy. Then beneath that, there's the limbic, which deals with pure instinctual stuff. And then at the top of the spine, there's a reptilian, which is pure basic instinct. And again, you have a preference there too. So if we were to consider what it means in more detail, if we're just looking at left brain, right brain for now, just to keep it super straightforward, then if you are more left brain dominant, you're likely to be more logical, more processed, more interested in numbers. You're going to be very articulate with language. You're going to be quite pragmatic and to the point and interested in the results and return on investment on things. You're going to be, I mean, this is kind of generic, but you're more likely to be interested in careers in the sciences or perhaps in law and so on. But if you're more right brain dominant, you can be more in touch with your emotions. You can deal better with visual concepts or artistry in some way. It gets complex when you start to think about things like music, because that also can be left brain dominant with the technicality there. You're going to be more purpose driven, perhaps, if you're cerebral right brain dominant, and you're going to look for an emotional connection if you're limbic right brain dominant, to give you a bit more context. You're going to work more on gut feel than empirical facts, and you'll generally be in a career requiring empathy and compassion. So a lot of HR professionals can be that way, but of course HR generally has moved more into an ops focus over the last couple of years. So that is more left brain. So it's quite fascinating. So let's just do a quick poll. Let's see if we got the poll for that. Yes, we have. This is super simplistic. I appreciate that. And yes, you can use both parts of the brain. But do you feel that you are left, right, or both? Now, of course you're both. Of course you're both. But you may have a preference one way or the other. It's quite rare that someone is equally balanced on both sides. So if you feel you're more left or more right, then do let us know. And Angela, what do you think I am?
Oh, real tough one. You're definitely left-brained. Right-brained, I mean. Right-brained. I'm left-brained.
Yeah, so I am off the chart right. And you can kind of guess that from the way I'm behaving on the webinar. And the challenge with that, and the reason why we're bringing it up, is because if I communicate that way to the rest of our team at the Innovation Beehive, who can be more left brain dominant, like Angela, for example,
Me.
that might have some implications for the way that my message comes across to Angela. It might be more difficult for me to get her engagement because she's not receiving the information in the best possible way. Good. I'm just going to end this poll. And not really a surprise there. Hopefully you can see the results. We've got a mix. So we've got half the group left, they feel they might be left brain dominant, 25% right, and 25% are perfectly balanced either way. There is not a right or wrong answer to it. It's just part of who we are. But of course, the recognition of how we operate in a team is going to be really, really important. The more we can get people to understand each other's preferences, the more we can get team members to sometimes, which is the third principle, adapt themselves so that their message can be better communicated to others, then the stronger that team is going to be, the more collaborative that team is going to be, and the more supported that team is going to feel, especially if they're working as a disparate or distributed team during COVID. So we developed a couple of years ago now a tool which some of you have taken on this call, I know, called the Innovators Profile. The Innovators Profile we actually developed as an innovation tool based on a number of different studies some of you will have seen, like the ones I mentioned before, but also based on our 12 years of operating in, oh, hello, come back, of operating in the best innovation companies, the most innovative companies in the world. We've taken those principles and developed this tool, and we're going to give it to you for free today. So have your smartphone cameras ready in a couple of slides time. You just need to scan a QR code and you'll get your report for free. You just need to fill it out. It takes less than 5 minutes and you'll get it in your email box. Now, the tool kind of is based on some of the stuff you may have seen before. It looks like this. So there's a part of it which is linked to the cerebral brain, a part of it linked to the limbic brain, part to the left and a part to the right. So regardless of your current preference or dominance or thinking style, you'll be in there somewhere to a greater or lesser degree. That means then that part of your brain is going to be more linked to higher level thinking, a part of your brain is going to be more linked to instinctual thinking, a part more to logical thinking, and a part more to creative thinking, in very simple terms. So when we divide that up into different areas, most tools call it quadrants. So if we divide it up into quadrants, then you'll have a particular preference, some of you, for rationalizing, a particular preference for dealing with process, a particular preference for people, perhaps emotional feedback from people, and a particular preference for some of pushing boundaries. So then we created this tool which then just has these 4 simple quadrants, which we call questioning, classifying, interacting, and experimenting. Give me a little cheer. Woohoo!
Woo!
Great, Angela. That was marvelous. Thank you very much. You'll get to read through that at any one time, but just start to think about yourself, because we're going to do this for your teams. So it's quite important that you take a moment to visualize these 4 different quadrants. Generally speaking, you will have a preference, and not just in one. You might be double dominant, triple dominant, quad dominant, and so on. But some people will have a preference there in that questioning quadrant, the top left one. That is all to do with analyzing things, dealing with numbers, working to facts, problem solving, setting clear goals, working to targets, practically fixing things, theorizing, measuring a return on investment. It might be that you have a preference in the classifying quadrant. That is about administration, having an attention to detail, being in control of things, planning things, working to deadlines, involving yourself in safety or caring about safety, working in a structure, scheduling things, having a process, supporting others, and being consistent. The third quadrant there, interacting, means you might have a dominance in communicating with others, being in relation, not just a relationship, being in relationships with others, having something tangible with others, resolving customer issues, teaching or training others, listening to others. Teamwork might be a particular strength of yours, persuading others, and intuition linked to empathy. If you have a dominance in the experimenting quadrant, that top right orange one there, it might be that you're good at seeing the big picture, creating things, selling ideas, taking risks, visualizing, playfulness, breaking rules, setting strategy, but not the detail of strategy, for understanding concepts, and using your imagination and intuition linked to ideas. Now, to give you an idea, I'll probably link it to myself. I am double dominant in 2 of those things, experimenting and interacting. I'm off the chart in experimenting and quite high on the chart on interacting. Very little on questioning and classifying. Does that mean I can't use those things? No. But it does mean I need to consciously adapt myself, actually even my speech, my body language, and the way I operate, if I'm going to change the way I interact to actually make my message heard properly to someone who is strong in questioning and classifying.
That was lovely that you just went, your body went stiller, your voice went quieter, you spoke more slowly when you consciously started to appeal to the left side.
I understand. Firstly, Angela, I did that because I know that's the way you like me to communicate with you. Secondly, I did it because I appreciate, since we were 50% left brain dominant, according to the numbers on this call earlier, I might need to adapt myself in order to make my message heard. But the fact is, I'm just going to carry on with my natural right brain dominant self.
But you're going to keep doing this. That's me. Do you know what? I'm sitting here and I'm still, that the F's, how many F's in this? I'm still here, and I'm holding myself in because I'm really dying to explain the logical analysis of why people don't spot all the F's.
Whereas
like,
I
no,
looked at it, was wrong, and just moved on. Of course, you'll start to recognize those people in your teams that you work with. We certainly can in our team, and how they work differently. And of course, that has an impact on our team's performance. And there's a number of things around that. So firstly, let's just talk about the report. If you do want to do this, if you haven't done it already, or if you want to do it again, feel free. So just scan this code with your camera on your smartphone or in your browser. Type in profile.innovationbeehive.co.uk, profile.innovationbeehive.co.uk. And what you'll get then is just a straightforward report. It takes less than 5 minutes to form, and I'll tell you why it's less than 5 minutes in a second. You get this report. It's multiple pages there, explanations of what your profile means, and also, they're doing the bins outside the window. And also how you can start to improve and fill your gaps. That might lead on to a number of questions. The first question might be, does my profile ever change? Will I, Zac, ever suddenly flip to being left brain dominant? Extraordinarily rare. I can adapt myself to do it, depending on my environmental or proactive push to do that. But for me to become naturally left brain dominant would take a significant scarring of some sort, perhaps a close family death or something significant which would change the makeup of my brain. But again, if you want to scan that, do feel free. So what does Diverge, that first principle, that fact that we're all individuals in the team, mean for the leader? Well, firstly, there is strength in the individual. There's strength in personal growth. There's strength in self-awareness. There's strength in maximizing the productivity of individuals so that they understand what it is they can do to achieve their own tasks. But also, self-awareness forms the foundation for much stronger collaboration. By being self-aware of what my own strengths are, that means I can bring something different to Angela when she's working on a project that she might not have thought of, as long as I can signal to her why I'm doing it and in what way, and do it in the best possible way that she hears it. So there is strength in Diverge. There is strength in the individual there. The second part of that strength is in me filling my gaps. So if I'm thinking about a particular project, I will try and tap into that left-hand side to make sure I'm not missing anything on, for example, return on investment of a project. What is the process to make the project successful and so on, which I might naturally not place an emphasis on. The second principle is converge, as you can see from the symbol in the top left. It's all about bringing people more together. It's more about actually having an understanding of other people's diverge principle. So what that really means then is actually just recognizing the differences in people. And an easy way of doing it, once you've received your report, is you can take a piece of paper like in the bottom right there, which is a tool we use called the Signals document, and start to think about other people that you work with. In fact, maybe that's an exercise we'll do now. And Angela, you and I can do it live with an unnamed person in the company while the people on the call think about someone that that they know who is different from them. It could be a loved one, a partner, a business colleague, team member. Just sort of do it on your own there and think about what that means. So I'll move on to the next slide in a second with some thought, some little words to help prompt you. And Angela, we can talk about, we can't name them on this call because it's being recorded. But if we think about there's a lady who a lot of admin work. Mm-hmm. Know the person I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
who's very good at organizing us.
She's very good at organizing. So as I look through this document here, the strengths document, that shows that some of the different, not all of them, but some of the different areas that we can start to think about when we're trying to recognize other team members. So if I think about in questioning, I think she's quite good at thinking logically, Angela.
Yeah, yeah.
She's quite good at theorizing. I wouldn't say it was a main strength. If I move across then to experimenting, she does challenge the status quo a bit. She's not very good at working with a lack of detailed input. uh, none of these are
Tells us
ringing
some,
particularly
yeah, it
true.
tells us some problems logically rather than intuitively, I'd say.
Yeah, she does. She is in touch with her emotions, I think. She's not that intuitive with other people's feelings, though. Let me look at classifying. She's definitely good at organizing data. She definitely finds overlooked detail.
Which,
In
yeah,
things that
usually
I
we're the
get.
ones who've overlooked it. Yeah.
Yeah, she does work consistently. She is supportive. She is very supportive as well. She does like developing procedures, and she does work to plans and processes. I would say, Angela, this person is definitely classifying.
Definitely classifying, but doesn't it highlight how important it is to have that mixture in a team
Yes.
that
Oh,
actually,
so there's two sides.
fills the gaps that we
There is
don't
two
want to
sides.
do?
So we have had people. So we've had people embed this tool as part of their culture. And there was a large uh, international drinks chain who have embedded it as part of their culture, and they also a bank, which is great. Um, and one of them was asking about whether they could use this as a recruitment tool. Well, and my initial response, well, no, my initial response was, you could, but actually the tool is not about saying this is who you are. The tool is about saying this is how I can adapt myself in order to be better understood by others in the team to make a stronger team. So you can use it to leverage strengths, absolutely. But of course, it's all about imagining your profile is elastic. How can you push yourself into those areas that you perhaps aren't as naturally strong at? So I would say she's definitely classifying. I think there's a bit of interacting in there as well, but less so on that cerebral, the top two-part questioning and experimenting. Good. So I hope you had time to just imagine somebody you thought of, and just imagine what their strongest quadrant might be. And it might be their single, double, triple, or quadruple dominant. And each of them comes with their own benefits and challenges. And I just want to sort of reinforce it with the teamwork piece. I love these two quotes here. If everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. Henry Ford. And if no one can whistle a symphony, it takes a whole orchestra to play it. Absolutely. So while Diverge, understanding the individual, is important, it's your ability as a leader to bring those people together in the way they communicate, which will make your team as strong as possible. So first principle, Diverge, the individual. Second principle, understanding others. So getting the whole team to understand the other individuals in the team. Why? Well, that leads to respect. It leads to openness and trust within the team about each other's differences. There's definitely a kind of diversity and inclusion part of this as well, where we have a shared understanding of the way each other operates. What does it mean for a leader? I know you were thinking that. So what Converge, this second principle, means is, if you think about the leadership cycle, the leader really starts with a vision, starts with goals. That could be under the umbrella of wider company vision. They then need to communicate that vision and those goals to other people, the people in their team. Then they then need to be able to delegate tasks in the most effective way. But to do that, they need to trust those people in order to complete those tasks, follow up with them in an effective way, provide feedback in the best way and recognition in order to lead to satisfaction of the task, satisfaction in the job, which then achieves the goal. Now, in order for that to happen, of course, there needs to be the strong communication piece, that starting point, that the vision and goals need to be communicated in the right way, that everyone is bought into it. That then means that the delegation part is going to be useful because of their strengths and because of how we're going to organize the team based on their profile. The trust part will come in through a shared openness of understanding their innovator's profile, which means the follow-up can be done in a style of the profile which fits best with the person. And recognition also, one of the most difficult things for any managers to get right, can be given in the style of the profile so that they feel more warm about the recognition being given. Same with feedback. If you have some constructive feedback to be given, it would be more effective if Angela did it in the style I understand, not if she did it in perhaps her natural style, which would be more kind of processed and logical. I'd like it in a way which I would understand, therefore I'm going to buy into it and try to improve, which would then lead to better satisfaction and so on. So again, do start to reflect on what it means, because as you bring people into the third principle, align, there's two sides to it. One is communication generally, and the second part is aligning the team. So the first part in align is thinking about you as a leader or you as a manager of people in adapting yourself. Woodrow Wilson said, I not only use all the brains that I have, but all that I can borrow. And I love that because I'm a big fan of adapting to get the best. Once a salesman, always a salesman. Adapting to get the best result you possibly can. And whilst it may appear I haven't adapted on this call, that's because, of course, I'm trying to demonstrate my own personality here. But in real life, if I'm working on a project, I have to adapt for the success of the project. And to a certain extent, we all do adapt generally in our lives, except unless it's a proactive, conscious move to adapt, it might not be as strong as it could be. So I might feel I'm talking in the way that Angela might perceive it to be. But of course, because her natural preference is on that left side, then she's not going to hear it quite as strongly as if I'm making a forced, proactive attempt to adapt. Why should we adapt? I know you were asking that. So there's a number of reasons. Firstly, to improve your own effectiveness, so you don't miss any gaps if you're working through a particular project or task. Even something small. So for example, when I'm sending an email, I haven't got an example here, but the little signals tool you saw on the screen earlier with the 4 boxes, I would normally fill that out with the information to put into an email. So I have the facts, the numbers, the return on investment detail, the process, the plan, the people involved, how we're going to engage them, and then the big idea, the why. So that everyone gets something from that communication piece, from that email or that white paper or whatever it is I'm writing. The second part of why we should adapt is to flex into those areas which may not be as strong. It's really healthy for our brains to start to operate in ways that they hadn't done before. We are going to snap back to our natural preference, but it's really useful for our brains to get that kind of exercise. Also to minimize communication filters, which we're going to look at in a minute. And to break down communication barriers. Any conflict in the team, of course, usually comes from a misconception or misunderstanding of a particular expectation, which could have been annulled through a tool like this. And I often, in coaching, I often do pair debriefs where we talk about conflict resolution. Angela, we've got something in the Q&A there. Do you want to just have
We
a
have
look?
a question here, yeah. A really interesting question, actually. Do people with a preference for intuition tend to adapt more naturally? So in responding to the other person, are they better at adapting? Do they tend to adapt more naturally? Is it easier for them?
The best way for me to answer this is to give you my personal subjective opinion, rather than the science, because I haven't been able to find. And we in the last 5 months we've had 1,000 people take this tool, and I've looked at all their details. Of course, it's confidential, but I've looked at all their details and I cross-referenced it and so on. We don't have enough data to scientifically determine it. My personal subjective opinion is yes. And in training these types of tools over the last 10 years, it's when we get people up on stage to try, to force them to adapt in front of others, and we do fun games and so on. There's partly a level of comfort issue there, but the other thing is those people who are right brain dominant usually find it easier. However, it's also more difficult for those people to adapt to the left in the way which makes left brain dominant people comfortable.
As a left brain dominant person, may I chip in here?
Of course.
That left brained people will, and again, this is all about tendencies, will, once they've seen the logical reason for, yes, there's a good reason why I should adapt myself, because I really need Zac to get on board with this.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's a logical process I should go through to do that. Then they'll take it on board. And this isn't the quadrants aren't necessarily about capability. It's more just about your tendency and what you tend to do. Yeah. And as with everything, it comes better with practice. What I find is those with the in the bottom right quadrant are kind of driven by, they like the harmony and they like the relationships and the interaction, and therefore will work on getting their interaction better. So a lot of it comes down to what's your motivation for doing it.
Yeah. And
if you tap into that motivation, then everybody's certainly capable of it and will do it.
Absolutely. And they will need, all of the team, regardless of their preference, will need continued support to do so. It's not something you can just fire at them and then forget. For example, we've had quite a lot of people with the free profile take it, give it to their team, take it, but then they think the communication is fixed. where actually it takes continued work to support the individual in Diverge in order to recognize others and then move through to adapt. So the last couple of things there about breaking down communication barriers is, and that's important, we need our message to be heard. For us as leaders, trying to engage people and motivate them, particularly in times of stress like now through a pandemic, we need that message to be heard properly by everybody. So it needs an element of all quadrants. And that's whole brain thinking, essentially, which would make it particularly strong. And there's a number of challenges with that, because regardless of how you give your message, you need to think about multiple options. So if you see the image here, it's trying to make the purest possible coffee. And I love coffee. You've probably seen this coffee being used during this call. Love coffee, obsessed with it. And I'm not sure this multiple filtration thing would work, because that would surely take out all the best parts of the coffee. But still, they're trying to make the best possible coffee. Now that means then that it's just like your message. So your message is poured pure and unsullied, like the water at the top here, in the way that you think it should be heard. But it's filtered through your own preference, through your own innovator's profile, which gives it a slight emphasis naturally, unless you proactively change it. That then is also filtered through your own body, your face, your tone, your words, depending on the communication method, regardless of whether it's email or Zoom or face-to-face. It's going to be filtered. You've seen my body language compared to Angela's as we go through this. Your body's going to reflect the way you're giving the message as well. That then, of course, is received through their own communication barriers, which could be anything from something cultural all the way down to a level of anxiety about whether or not they're going to keep their job, or something around the way they woke up in the morning is going to affect the way that they hear those particular messages. Then that also means it's then going to be filtered through their own innovator's profile. So to get your message across in the right way means you need to construct it using all 4 quadrants, so that you've got the best possible chance of getting through those filtration sessions as pure as possible. Did that make sense, Angela?
It made perfect sense. Yeah, I love the logic and the structure that you've put to that slide.
God, that was painful for me to do.
I could tell.
I tried to do it. You know, I need to go back to something visual. So look, that's so it's our ability as leaders, managers, and team members to adapt and engage to others, which will ensure maximum communication effectiveness. It doesn't matter whether it's about innovation or leadership or culture or just basic human interaction. The more that we can take accountability and responsibility to adapt and engage to others, the more, using those 4 quadrants you see on the screen, the more we'll be able to get the best out of each other and about our teams. Now, I don't want to overshare. Actually, I don't care.
But you will.
I am divorced, but I had the best possible divorce, and I have the best possible relationship with my ex and her husband and their kids now because of this psychology. By adapting myself, making sure my message is heard in the right way, and they do it to me as well, both ways, it means that we all get along really, really, really well. And I put it down exactly to this methodology. So I really strongly want you to think about how you can adapt it and use it. When we think about the second part of aligning our team, that's the team itself. You know, first thing is we thought about how we can adapt. That's about getting the team to adapt as well. We know about effective teams, don't we? We know the characteristics. We've been doing leadership training for the last 20 years, so we're quite aware that an effective team needs a clear, unified goal, a results-driven structure, competent, trained members of staff, a unified commitment to achieving that goal. They need a collaborative climate to do it in, and they need support and recognition. We know that stuff, right?
Right.
The thing that binds it all together, the thing which makes these things work, the thing without which these would fail is, of course, communication. So this profile is important, but for your team to hear it, we need to be able to teach them. We need to encourage it. If you want to take the profile.innovationbeehive.co.uk, if you want to take it and give it to the whole of your team or your company, great, fine, do it. It's free, so why not? If it helps communication in your business, take it and send it to everybody. Who knows, it might help. The important part about it is actually our ability to signal to others what we're trying to achieve and in what way. So for example, Angela, if I was being too much like I have been on this webinar, and it was making Angela perhaps feel uncomfortable, or it was Angela wasn't hearing the message in the right way, if we have the right setup, she's well within her right to say, look, Zac, can we just talk about some of the quadrant areas we may have missed here? Can we work through some of the numbers, questioning? Can we actually put a plan together? Because you've got, you're excited about the end result, but can we just put a plan together? Can you think about the classifying quadrant? And that will then signal to me that, okay, I've perhaps been a bit too on the right-hand side. What can we do moving forwards? And that means then I can begin to adapt myself if I didn't proactively do it in advance. So signaling to your team how we're going to tap into all 4 quadrants, I think is really, really important. Why? Well, because it all leads to a shared understanding of each other and the way each other operates. It leads to being able to adapt to each other, which means collaboration. Better communication means a better strength in the business. And there are loads of tools you could put together, or we've got tools to align the team on planning using all 4 quadrants, to align the team on actions to goals using all 4 quadrants, and so on. You can bring it to life in so many different ways. And it's important because when you rebuild a team, and rebuild's a strong word, when you rebuild a team in communication using the principles of diverge, converge, and align, it does mean then that you're better able to understand how they think, how they react, how they behave and work through challenges. It means that they themselves can understand those things as well, which might make them more resilient, will certainly make them easier in some way to work with. It also means that we can understand the importance, and they can understand the importance of working positively with communication, particularly important with remote or distributed working, when a lot of people will feel perhaps alone or lost, or some other thing. Angela, we know of a company where there are people who do struggle with remote working, and a better communication means
I was going to say,
working through it.
The ones where they really find it tricky, where some are back in the office or back in the workplace, and others are at home, and that's kind of a lot where the mismatch is how do you engage everybody, and this tool really helps you do that.
It does. Well, I mean, it's helped them to understand, of course, how each other works, but also the positive and the negatives of their communication styles, the impact on any work they're doing. And a rebuilt team does have the ability to adapt themselves to the task or person they face. So we at the Innovation Beehive have been working at pace. I mean, really working at pace, but leveraging the profile to do that. So if I'm working at pace, how can I adapt myself to ensure I'm not missing a trick, so that we have to do the work again and again and again? Also, sorry, I lost my tongue on my tooth there. Minimalizing conflict in working practices using the profile is super important. It also gives you a framework overall for communication. So those 3 principles we feel are important. If there's something you can take out of it, that would be marvelous. If not, just think about how you can continue to engage your team and adapt with them. And it wouldn't be one of our webinars unless we had to offer you something as well at 50% off. So we put together a whole program about communication using the profile, loads of downloadable PDF tools. You can get it 50% off with the code RebuildOctober50, RebuildOct50 with the QR code there. Feel free to do that. I think it works out now at £49.50 or something like that. What price? What price is £49.50 in order to have a superior, high-performing, communicative team? I don't know, Angela. Do you know?
Well, as you said, it's not just about your team, is it? No. This applies to every relationship you've got in your life. Yeah. The better the communication you have with anybody, with your kids, parents, spouses, partners, whatever, the better your relationship is. Yeah. So
at the very minimum, at the very minimum, if you haven't done the profile yet, do the profile. I didn't explain why it's only 5 minutes to complete. We did look at doing a validated kind of 150 question survey, but actually we've opted to keep it simple. And the reason why we've opted for that is because we don't want people to feel they're being put into a box. We want people to use this as a springboard to adapt. We want people to use this to move into a line. We want people to use it as a talking piece for the team, as a way to say, hey, well, you know what? Perhaps I have been focusing too much on return on investment and not engaging the team enough with interacting, for example. So we opted to keep it light as a springboard so that you don't get too bogged down in it putting you in a box. So do feel free to take it, and do email me if you have any feedback as well. We'd love to hear it. It's been running now for a couple of years and people have really enjoyed it. So thanks everyone for your time. Angela, thank you for hosting.
Someone said, can we get the QR code? Is that not the QR code on there?
I'll go back to the slide in a second. Let me see if I can, you'll have to excuse the flyby. I'm going to flip back now to...
Flicking at pace.
Flicking at pace here. Look, we're going through the slides. Let's go back to it. Gosh, there was a lot of information here. We'll send out the link as well, but it's, where is it? Have I gone past it? There it is. So you see at the right-hand side there, hold your smartphone camera over the QR code. You'll be sent straight there. If not, it's profile.innovationbeehive.co.uk. Awesome. Angela, anything else?
I don't think so. It's been very enjoyable, Zac. Thank you very much. That was very interesting.
Well,